You know, when Santa is just around the corner, beware. Because the lesbians might be too. Because it's Carol season. Not now as I record this video, but you get the gist. Well, lesbians, did you know that one of your favorite movies might have been an adaptation of one of the first gay stories with a happy ending? We all know how often lesbians die for their love.
Another one, thank you. Another one, thank you. Another one, thank you. Oh my God. I can't. Get out. Oh my God, I gotta do that thing for Nickelodeon. Oh my God. I love you for watching that.
So today, we're not doing a movie trial or a book trial, but we are simply discussing. I have here a copy of Carol that I've read like 1,000 times already, and by the end of it, there's an afterword where the author, Patricia Highsmith, tells us about what inspired the book and the impact it had at the time. That's what I want to talk about today, guys, because although I know this book is not perfect, it is still a milestone for our community. So, let's discuss the first lesbian happy ending, starting with a look into the author's life, because, fun fact, this is her only book of the romance genre. Patricia Highsmith, the suspense author. We won't talk about things like where she went to college or what year was she born. That is all useless information. But for those of you who didn't know, Patricia Highsmith is the author of The Talented Mr. Ripley. And if you haven't heard of the book, you might have heard of the movie. You know, the very gay-coded 1999 movie. What we want to focus on is specifically the moment when Patricia Highsmith found inspiration for the novel. Because before that, she had just finished writing her first novel called Strangers on a Train. It explored themes of good and evil, which became recurrent throughout her career. The book was published in 1950 and later adapted into a movie by none other than Alfred Hitchcock. But Carol entered Patricia's life a little before that. Yes, by the end of 1948, she was in New York, short on money and depressed, and Christmas was just around the corner. So she got a job at a department store in Manhattan for the Christmas rush, which was about a month long. She was put in the toy section, specifically behind the dolls counter. One day, a blonde woman wearing a mink coat and gloves walked in. Patricia was immediately pulled by her presence, and the woman walked up to Patricia asking for help to choose a doll. And after Patricia helped her, she paid millions to take Alex Consani home, left her address for delivery, and left. That is how inspiration struck. Patricia had the idea and wrote it down, beginning to end, in a couple of hours. It's funny to me how she describes the moment after as her feeling weird, because to me it just sounded like she fell in love. And she did fall ill with a fever and couldn't go to work anymore. She did not write the book right away, because she liked to let the idea simmer for a bit. And then Stranger on a Train came out, and she started being labeled as a suspense author. And her label started asking for books of the same genre, due to the success they saw from the first one.
I just wanted to say, this is the first time that I'm watching this, because I have not yet watched all of the...
But Patricia went on and wrote the damn thing either way. And of course, The Price of Salt, as it was originally titled, was rejected by Harper & Bros. She had to get a deal from a different label and use a different name. So in 1952, The Price of Salt was published under the name of Claire Morgan, and it was a huge success. The Price of Salt. For context, the 50s were not a good decade to be a homosexual. You think now it's difficult? Try being a man-hating lesbian with armpit hair in the 50s. There was active government persecution for the so-called deviants, or sexual perverts. In some cities, the police would form vice squads and arrest people, and during World War II, gay people were heavily associated with communism. There was publicized effort to dismiss communists as well as gay people. They started 2 campaigns. One called the Red Scare, targeting the communists.
Therefore, propaganda is vastly more important in democratic societies.
In recognizing a communist, physical appearance counts for nothing. If he openly declares himself to be a communist, we take his word for it. If a person consistently reads and advocates the views expressed in a communist publication, he may be a communist. If a person supports organizations which reflect communist teachings, or organizations labeled communist by the Department of Justice, she may be a communist.
And the other called Lavender Scare, targeting gay people. That is more or less the same terms used to exclude lesbian feminist identities from the feminist movement in 1969. The feminist activist and leader of the National Organization for Women, NOW, or NOW, Betty Friedman, used the term lavender menace to claim that lesbian issues were irrelevant to the majority of women. That's how backwards it was back then. The book was published in 1952, and in 1969 we were still being excluded from the conversation. And most people nowadays are familiar with the term because it took the creation of the Lavender Menace group in 1970 for the NOW group to come around and include lesbian rights in its policies. So yeah, you wouldn't find any positive representation of homosexuality in 1950. As Patricia herself writes, gay people in American romances were forced to pay for their deviance, either by dying or conforming to heterosexuality. So the price of salt stood out because there was hope in it, and people felt like their stories were being better represented by it. Because even then, gay people didn't just commit suicide or force themselves to be heterosexual. A lot of people were living quite happily despite everything they had to deal with. There was fight and there was hope, even in the 1950s. So for years, Patricia received letters addressed to Claire Morgan from people, men and women, thanking her for writing the book, calling it the first book with a happy ending, because in many ways it was the first for them, although it was the last for Patricia. As I said before, she did not write any other book of the genre afterwards, but she agreed to a new edition under her actual name with the new title, Carol. And Patricia wrote this afterward in May of 1989. According to her, the letters were still coming in, even after all those years. And they probably kept coming up until her death in 1995, making Carol the book that marked her for life. I mean, it marked ours too, didn't it? Now, who is Carol? Because, Patricia didn't just write a sapphic love story for funsies. Of course, she had to have some interest in depicting her own attraction to women. There's talk that Patricia sought the job at the department store in order to pay for her own treatment of her deviant desires. Apparently, she was engaged to a novelist called Mark Brando at the time, but was not pleased with the idea of actually marrying him. You're gay! So she joined this support group for married women who are latent homosexuals and had the brilliant idea of seducing a couple of them for her own amusement, as Patricia herself writes in her diary. She did not marry Lil Markey, or anyone else for that matter. For Carol, she had 2 muses. One, as we discussed, was the woman Patricia met at the department store. Caralho. my fading voice. Her name was Kathleen E.R. Sen. She was the wife of a wealthy businessman and also an alcoholic. Patricia decided to track the woman down after she finished the manuscript of The Price of Salt. Because of course she would. She is a lesbian after all. Allegedly. She memorized her address and took a train and then a bus and then another 2 more trains and then a 2-hour cab drive to get to a bus stop and then another bus. Just kidding, I just wanted it to sound more lesbian than it actually was. She only took 1 train and 1 bus to get to Sen's neighborhood. And they never actually met or had any relationship, so it's said that Patricia waited until she saw someone who kind of looked like Mrs. Sen, but she never confirmed it herself. Wouldn't it be weird if she just popped up where the woman lives, followed her home, and told her, I wrote a lesbian love story about you? The other muse was a woman named Virginia Kent Catherwood, with whom Patricia had a passionate affair. Virginia was a wealthy divorcee and the daughter of a famous radio company founder. She and Patricia met at a party in New York and became lovers in 1946. 46 and 2, just ahead of me. And although they only dated for like a year, Virginia lingered on Patricia's mind long after that. I mean, clearly. In her diary, Patricia wrote this about Virginia. My green and red goddess, my jade and garnet, my moss and hollyberry, my sea and sun, my marrow and my blood, my stop and go baby. I adore you, I worship you, I kiss you, I cherish you, I defend you, I defy you ever not to love me. I caress your nipples with my tongue. Wow. Now why didn't she write that in Carol? Catherwood also inspired critical plot points in the book, like the part where Hard hires a detective and records them in the hotel room. Catherwood's husband did the same while they worked together. The tapes were played at court and she lost custody of her daughter. As we all know, Carol goes through the exact same thing, both in the movie and in the book. Look. Patricia and Virginia never spoke again after their breakup. Now, if you search a little more, you may find that Patricia Highsmith was a bit of a bitch. She did not like feminists. She was racist. And she died a very bitter woman. But you know what? Carol outlives all of that. Even with all of its fundamental issues, it's one of my favorite books of the genre and every lesbian's favorite Christmas movie, thanks to Cate Blanchett. So that's that, gays. Thank you so much for getting through this with me. If you liked the video, please support this Lavender Menace here by leaving a like. Not just that. Also subscribe to get more videos like this. And share it with your friends if you like. If you dare to share on a chair. Bye.
You can act bad, or you can be good. You can be from privilege or straight from